All right, everyone. Brandon Soraka here, CEO and founder of Forteck. I'd like to welcome you all to tree measurements webinar today, August 25th. And so today we're going to go over tree measurements specific to Alberta. We'll touch on some of the different types of tree measurements. We'll touch on some of the opportunities with tree measurements, why tree measurements are important, what they are, what a typical day looks like completing tree measurements, some employment opportunities, as well as a few other things. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what are tree measurements? Tree measurements in Alberta consist of measurement of diameter and heights of trees at specific location with a specific plot radius. Diameters are typically recorded at diameter, breast height, and the height recorded at total tree height and height to live crown. Species codes and health conditions are typically recorded. Additional information may be recorded depending on the type of plot being completed. Why are tree measurements important? So tree measurements are used for multiple purposes, which often include determining sustainable timber harvest of the forest resource, calculating growth and yield of a forest stand, data analysis, long-term planning, calculating carbon capture and carbon credits, and more. One of our field staff took this photo here with the guys heading into a plot. Types of tree measurements completed in Alberta. So some of the common ones that we complete are temporary sample plots, or TSPs, permanent sample plots, or PSPs. We've done performance surveys, LiDAR plots. We've done tree measurements for research purposes. And something that is becoming more common is carbon credits. So a lot of people are measuring trees now to calculate carbon storage and also be able to calculate carbon credits. So those are just a few. There may be other reasons why people wouldn't be measuring trees on the land base, but these are some of the common ones that we typically run into. So yeah, if anyone has any questions on the PowerPoint so far, or the presentation, feel free to ask. You can raise your hand or even unmute yourself at the question periods. And we'll break for questions after every few slides, just so we can make sure we answer any questions that anyone may have. If there's no questions, we'll go to the next slide. So temporary sample plot breakdown. Common plot size example would be a 5.64 meter plot radius. When our crews are completing temporary sample plots, they typically try to target 3 plots per day. Oftentimes, production of plots completed per day will depend on the location that they're working, whether they're truck accessible, whether they're ATV accessible or snowmobile accessible, whether they have to walk distance, and quite common depending on how far the plots are between each other. So if you're completing a temporary sample plot and it's 1 plot per stand or something like that, then you may have to travel significant time between plots. But if you have multiple plots in one area, you can often get a lot more done. So I'd say on average, probably 3 to 5 plots per day, typical crew of 2 people would complete. And sometimes it could be less than that, and we've seen as many as 6 or more completed in a day. So yeah, that's a bit about the kind of production and I guess the radius size. PSP plot breakdown. So yeah, common size is 11.28 meter and target of 1 plot per day. Sometimes that changes depending on how many trees are going to be in the plot. If you're doing a remeasurement plot, there may be you may have old data that says how many trees are in the plot, so you can kind of understand how many trees are going to have to measure in the day prior to heading out, which can really affect production. If you end up with a plot with a lot of trees, you may have to spend 3 or 4 days in one plot. But if it's an average plot and the crew's trained and experienced and good, they should hopefully be able to complete 1 permanent sample plot per day. That's always our target. Some times it's a day and a half, 2 days, and it can be more. But yeah, we always try to target a plot per day when we can. So a typical day of completing tree measurements. If you work in the forest industry, you'll know that a typical day is not typically a typical day. So as many of you know, when you're working in the woods, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different factors and elements such as weather, access concerns, equipment concerns. You're often driving down bush roads, forested in the forest that often can have, be hard on equipment. You may pop a tire, you may have muddy conditions, always a chance of getting stuck, something like that. So yeah, it's typical day is not always a typical day in the forest. If I had to break down a typical day in regards to time and access and completing the work, this is what I came up with. So I start your day at 6:30 a.m. waking up. 7:30 a.m. complete your equipment inspections, driving conditions, hazard ID. 7:45 a.m. So at 7:30, it's really important to make sure that you have all the proper equipment for the day. Last thing you want to do is, go to the field with a GPS that isn't charged or forget your lunch. It's never fun. Make sure you have water, all the proper equipment that you may need, that your radios are charged, so you can communicate with your coworkers in the field. Those are some of the things that you want to make sure when you're gathering your equipment in the morning that you have everything that you need, that you're dressed well for the elements, that you understand what the forecast is for the day. If it's going to be, raining or something like that, you may need to bring extra clothes to have on your ATV or in the vehicle when you get back, or in your vest. So yeah, 7:45 a.m. Leave accommodations via 4x4 pickup. Say 8:30 a.m. you get to the job site, unload the ATVs at the job site. Then you'd be updating the tailgate meeting, so adding all the other additional concerns, safety concerns or safety information. So what specific location you're going to be going to, what radio frequency that you're using, how you plan to check in with your supervisors. We use an app called SiteDocs, so all this information gets auto uploaded to all of our staff. So we can, if someone was to not check in, we could go to their tailgate meeting and see what radio frequency they're using, what area they're planning to be working in. And we've successfully been able to locate people that miss their check-ins just due to the information from the tailgate meetings. So yeah, then you would unload the quads, complete tailgate meeting, and then travel to the blocks. Once you're at the plot, or the stand, I guess, or proposed block, then you would basically start your first plot. So once you're at your plot, you'd work through your plot, and if you're doing TSPs, you may move from one area to another, or from plot to plot to plot throughout the day. And then usually you're meeting back the ATVs between 4 and 5 p.m. depending on the person. Some people like to start earlier and finish earlier, and some like to get up a bit later and finish a bit later. Important things, as long as you're working well with your crew members, and that the times are agreed to. If you say let's be back at 4 p.m., you don't want someone sitting there at 4 p.m. for 2 hours waiting for your partner or something. But when you're doing tree measurements, you'd be typically working in a crew of 2, so that's usually not a concern. But for something like layout, if you're working on your own blocks or your own areas, just want to make sure that you communicate with your partner if you're going to be late, or and then you try to hit the time to meet at the ATVs for safety reasons. So yeah, 4:30 p.m. meet back at the pickup, and then 5:30 p.m. arrive at hotel, and then you typically shower and have supper and whatnot, and then 7:30 p.m. finish any reporting you need to do for the day, and plan for the next day, so you have a good idea of what you're going to do going into the next day. Gonna go back on that. Did anyone have any questions on a typical day working in the woods? Obviously, when it's hot out, some people start a lot sooner. We've done jobs where you start as early as 2-3 in the morning, so you're back by noon or 1 o'clock. Avoid the heat of the day. And obviously, if you're working in the winter and you show up, if you're in northern Alberta and you show up to your job site at 8 in the morning, it's probably still gonna be dark for an hour, and it may not be best traveling conditions on your ATV.
Brandon, we've got Myron in there that's got a question in the chat.
Okay. Are the necessary basic tools and equipment required for tree measurements provided by Forteck, or are staff required to have them? Yeah, so we have a list of equipment that employees are to provide, and a list that are provided by the company. The things that are provided by employee are typically going to be like cruise vest, boots, personal gear. With that being said, when we're setting up new staff members, we have inventory of all the typical forest gear that you would need at our main office, and we can sign that out and set up a payment plan for our employees. And if they return their gear back at the end and it's in good condition, then we would, at the end of the contract, or if there was a resignation, then we would pay them back 100% of what they paid into it. Just keeps a bit of onus on the staff members to make sure that they're taking care of their equipment and stuff like that. But there's a bunch of things like the more expensive stuff, GPS units, inReaches for communication, all that kind of stuff is always provided by the company, and there's no expense to the employees. One thing that we provide as well is company ATVs. We do have company pickups as well. I think we have about 6 of them now. And we also give the opportunity to our employees to utilize their own for pay. So we pay truck rates, whether that's production or by the kilometer as well. We have ATV rates for anyone that would like to use their ATV or utilize their own camper on site as well. We do have, I believe, 5 company campers now. Hopefully that answered your question, Myron. Moving on to the next slide. So what you get when you work with Forteck, quality, safety, and accuracy. That's in our mission statement. So Forteck is core safety certified in Alberta. We're also certified with Safe BC and in Safe Saskatchewan. We have a dedicated safety manager available for all staff and clients. So if there's ever a safety concern, they can reach out to her. If there's ever an incident that needs reviewed and investigated, she's available to help with that. We have a fleet manager who ensures regular equipment maintenance. We have a dedicated project manager for every project. We provide weekly updates for every project, including safety reporting, timelines. We'll go over the weekly update in another slide. We have competent workforce, primarily consisting of RPFTs, RPFs, PBIOs, etc. We aim to complete greater than 10% quality control by a senior staff member or a third-party contractor on every project. We typically utilize ARC Collector or field maps, and we provide a collector view link so that our clients can see the progress of our projects, what's been completed, what's outstanding, the quality of the work. They can have the opportunity to view those links and go to the field and check the areas that we've been working in and check the data and stuff on an ongoing basis. We submit our data to the desired specifications of our clients, and we can submit detailed reporting, access maps, data reports, things like that. Any questions so far, other than the one Myron had? If not, we'll move on to the next slide. So here's an example of one of our weekly updates. So if we have a collector view link, we'd provide a view link for you to view the maps that we're working on. We give our clients an overview statement of the past week and an update on the next week's plans. We give an update on the tentative shift plan for the next week and the next month. So how many people working and who will be on shift and off shift, and any additional information around shift scheduling. We provide production information. So if we're working on TSPs, for example, we would say roughly how many we're getting completed per day, per week, per crew. We give a projected timeline to complete the project or areas. We go over what quality control has been completed in the past week and what is needing done in the next upcoming weeks. So again, our target for quality control is 10%, and we'll increase that to 25% for new staff. And we've increased it even more than that for some specific project types where it's required. We give an update of safety reporting completed in the past week. So tailgates are required to be completed on every one of our projects every day and signed by every crew member on that project. And we provide documents such as safety observations. So we target to have a couple safety observations completed per crew per week, as well as any near misses get reported and submitted in the weekly update. If there's any incidents, they'll get submitted. Well, the client will be alerted if there's an incident right away, and the report submitted within 24 hours. Safety, safety, safety. So daily tailgate meetings, we complete them, all crew members every day. Hazard observations regularly, near misses as they happen, and incidents reported right away and documented within 24 hours. As well, if there's any investigations that need to be completed, we do have our safety manager, and I'm often involved in the investigations as well. So communication, when you're working in remote areas in the woods, very important that you have constant, steady communication. And so we require everyone to have a radio. We actually supply 2 radios to our staff so that if they have issues with one, they're not going to have any down days or anything because they would have a spare. So each crew has an inReach satellite communication device. Not sure if you guys are familiar with those, but there's a few different models. We use inReach, but there's Spot. There's a couple new ones. I think Zolio is one. Or you could use satellite phones. We used to use those. But yeah, we typically use inReach, so you can message through satellite when there's no cell service. Everyone has a cell phone and or GPS. And we like to have everyone have a spare GPS. So like if they're working with an iPad, then they would also have a cell phone with all the maps downloaded so that if something were to die or break, then they could still navigate their way out of the bush. Obviously, we would all have compasses as well to navigate out of the bush. Spare battery pack to charge equipment. So one thing when you're doing tree measurements, you're going to be typically entering the data nowadays into an iPad. So making sure that you have sufficient battery for the day is super critical so that you don't end up getting halfway through the day and your iPad dying and you not having enough power to continue to operate it and capture the data. So yeah, we use an app called SiteDocs. You just download it on your phone. All of our staff are orientated on SiteDocs and set up with a SiteDocs account in our onboarding process. Some benefits of SiteDocs are that basically, I guess I could explain what SiteDocs is. So it's an app that you use for all safety documentation. It's an app on your phone. There's also a web version that you can open on your desktop. The benefits of it is that there's no paper, so we're not trying to search for near misses and tailgates in people's trucks that they may have misplaced or got muddy or whatever the situation may be. SiteDocs works offline, so if you're in a no cell service area and you have a near miss and you want to document it, you can document it right on site. You can pull up your phone and plot a photo of what you see, multiple photos of the incident. It auto logs the latitude and longitude location so that if someone else needs that to go see exactly where it happened or do an investigation, that they can. It syncs when it's online. So if you do the report when you're offline, as soon as you hit cell service or Wi-Fi with your device, then it'll automatically sync. For us, all of our standard operating procedures, our forms, so our tailgates, our safety observations, our near misses, our incident reports are all available on there and accessible by all staff all the time, whether they're online or offline.
Renzo asked in the chat if SiteDocs is just for safety documents.
Yes, SiteDocs is just for safety documents. We have used it for filling out forms and other things like that in the past, but yeah, SiteDocs is primarily used for safety. A few other apps that we use are there's multiple different apps that are used for capturing data, so capturing the plot data. Typically, we use whatever our clients have set up and want us to use. As well, we utilize like Google Drive. We share a lot of our files for projects on Google Drive. So if you have completed data or completed block reports, whatever the situation may be, they get uploaded to our shared Google Drive under the appropriate client folder. Some other apps that we use would be like Avenza, ARC collector for those are both used for navigation and GPSing. Those are probably all the main ones. There's a few apps that you can use like GPS status or some GPS apps that can tell how accurate your GPS external devices or how accurate your GPS is, which is super critical if you're doing something like LiDAR calibration plots or some inventory plots are used in conjunction with LiDAR, or it's just important that they're very accurate. So we do have some super accurate GPS units that are sub-meter, and you can utilize some of these applications to make sure that they are getting the accuracy required in the field. I already went over this, but basically what you get working with Forteck is safety manager, fleet manager, project manager, weekly updates, competent workforce, 10% quality control or more, collector view links, data submissions as required and in regards to timelines and specifications. And then we also have additional submissions that we can do, such as georeferenced PDF maps, block reports, data reports, whatever you really need done. So yeah, we are hiring. I know there's a few people on here that are coming to work with us in the upcoming months. So glad to have you guys on here. You know who you are. And yeah, we're always looking to add great people to our team. We have a lot of opportunities for staff. So we have opportunities for junior staff, intermediate staff, senior forestry technicians and foresters as well. We have management opportunities, executive level opportunities. Those are just a few of the opportunities that we have within the organization. And we aim to create a clear path of, you know, if you come out of forestry school and you're starting with us, about how you can continue to work with us and what the opportunities are to advance in your career. We do offer a lot of different services. So if you're starting in your career and you want to get a lot of experience doing multiple different things in multiple provinces or work locations, definitely a good company to get started with. As well, we can offer full-time work in specific areas for senior staff. So really, there's a lot of great reasons to come work with us.
Renzo also asked if this is an opportunity for international professionals.
Yes, we are hiring internationally. We have 3 candidates coming this fall, and that will be training, and we're actively working on building a online interactive training program where we can take international hires or you know, people freshly out of school, summer students, stuff like that, and we can put them through internal training and competency programs. Some of it'll probably be a combination of, well, it will be a combination of online training programs. So some of these webinars, one multi-purpose of these webinars is to utilize them for training purposes. So we're trying to go through all of our service lists and do basically entry level training for each of our services to get for our staff and clients to get a better understanding of what we can do and the types of work that we complete. And yeah, so the long-term plan is to have a Forteck internal training process that is digital and includes field competencies. We already have a lot of it in place, but we're continually working on our onboarding and training process. There's a lot of opportunity to bring staff in and give them the opportunity to learn and develop themselves professionally in their forestry career. So that being said, if you are interested in working with us, at the bottom of the screen here, there's a email, careers@forteck.ca. We have Allison on here. She's our hiring manager, and Allison would be the one to set up interviews with you, review the resumes, and ultimately put together the final offers. And if Allison would like to say anything on HR, she can feel free to. I see we have a couple chats here. Renzo, thank you for hopping on today. I see your messages there. Feel free to contact Allison at careers@forteck.ca. Here's a few more of our services. So Forteck is capable of providing all services within the scope of forestry and environmental services in Western Canada. A list of our current services is listed below. If you need more information on services, please send us a message or contact us via email at info@forteck.ca. So yeah, our long-term vision is to be able to complete all services within the scope of forestry and environmental services. We do have multiple joint ventures, aviation, logging, dozers, excavators, completing site prep, construction, that kind of thing is something that we currently have in place. A lot of our internal services are cut block layout is a main service. Obviously, we're in the tree measurements webinar, so that's one of our main services. We do consulting, planning, environmental inspecting and monitoring, logging, permitting, and coordinating. We utilize drones. We have 2 certified drone pilots who work with us, and we have a couple more staff that are going to be studying to get theirs as well. Tree planting. So we do tree planting for forestry companies as well as oil and gas, reclamation, remediation. Brush pile burning. We complete that annually, usually around 30,000 piles per year in Alberta. Timber scaling is something we do. Seed collection. So yeah, doing different types of cone collections, stuff like that. Grass seeding, tree falling. We also do fall and burn, reclamation, remediation, silviculture surveys, timber cruising, logistical planning, hot shot service, legal surveying, fire smart projects, waste and residue in British Columbia, ATV and trailer rentals. We coordinate some logging, complete some logging through joint ventures, site prep and heavy equipment through joint ventures, spraying and spray paints, helicopters, and more. Did anyone have any questions on our services?
Tom asked in the group chat what we're utilizing drones for, LiDAR or photogrammetry.
Yeah, so we've done some LiDAR work in the past. We have the ability to complete drone LiDAR, as well as we've recently done some plane LiDAR, phone LiDAR. Yeah, we've done photogrammetry. We use them internally a lot too. So some ways that we use them internally on projects is to provide clients updates. So some of the logging operations we've been looking at will fly the area and provide an overview of the progress and how the retentions are looking that are being left. Just a good overview aerial to understand how the loggers are doing and if they're meeting the requirements that are required for retention leave and stuff like that, and understory leave. We'll use them for scouting access, calculating aggregates, so calculating the volume of sand and gravel aggregates, calculating the volume of timber in storage yards and stuff like that. We've also done some thermal imaging. One of our webinars that's going to be coming in the future is about utilizing drones for thermal scanning following brush pile burning. Very interesting. We did some tests last year and it went quite well. So this year I'm assuming that we'll have multiple projects where we'll be doing thermal scanning of brush piles after the winter burn via drone. On average, we found the cost to be about half the price of utilizing helicopter. So I guess that's really exciting for anyone on here that may work at a mill and have an interest in that for this upcoming following winter, I guess, into the spring. So Myron has a question. What data do you capture in your data analysis when you establish plots? Establish plots. What data do you? I guess I think what you're asking is what data we capture when we're completing tree measurements. It's really going to depend on what plot type. So temporary sample plots are more often used for calculating. They're only done once, right? So a permanent sample plot is remeasured in a usually around a 10-year interval. So a temporary sample plot would be used to figure out the volume of a specific stand. So you typically, most tree measurements, the main thing that you're capturing would be the diameters of the trees, the diameter breast height, so 1.3 meters off the ground, and then you'd be capturing the height of the trees, and then you'd typically be capturing some sort of a code with the trees. So it'd be there's different types of codes. So if it's healthy, there'd be code for that, like H, for example. If it's got a crook in it, there'd be a code. If there's a fork, there'll be a code. If the tree's got some sort of mechanical damage, there may be a code. If it's got insect or disease, there'd be a code. So it helps understand what's affecting the trees in the land base. And if you're doing permanent sample plots, you can see how that affects a tree year over year, because one year it might have some insects and disease, and then when you come back to measure it, it may be standing dead, so that you can tell that that tree died from that disease. So yeah, those would be some of the main things that you could be capturing. Obviously, there's sapling plots, which would be the smaller trees, and then there'd be eco and like permanent sample plots where you'd be capturing, what the ground is like, so the soils and the depth of the moss, things like that, and those would be some of the main things that you would be capturing, and that data all gets utilized for long-term forest planning. So if you're looking at 100-year plans and you're utilizing your PSPs, you'd be entering all that to calculate sustainable cuts. I personally don't have tons of experience with the data side of it. My experience is managing and field crews and completing the field work, which is what we specialize in at Forteck. We do have some staff that work with us that have a lot more experience in the and some collaborative companies that we work with in the data management, utilization, planning side. For us, we run ground crews and complete lots of measurements across Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan. I'm not sure if that answered your, okay, he said yes, that's what he was asking. Thanks for the question, Myron. Anyone else have any questions on our services? If not, we'll go on to the next slide. So yeah, if you're interested in, I guess specifically if you're interested in hiring Forteck to complete work, probably the best person to contact is Nicole. So Nicole is our sales representative or business development person. Her contact info is here, phone number and email. As well, you can contact me anytime. My phone number is here, my email is there. If you are applying to work with us, the best email is careers@forteck.ca. We do have a pretty strong social media presence, so this webinar will be posted onto our YouTube account. So our YouTube account is just forteck.ca, I believe. And on Instagram, we're Forteck, on Facebook, Forteck, and LinkedIn as well. I'll just leave this up for one more minute if anyone wants to contact Nicole or myself about having us complete tree measurements or any of our other services. So that concludes today's webinar. If I had time, I was going to go over some additional things of where you can find some of the documents that we work under for permanent sample plots, temporary sample plots in Alberta. So I'll just do that now. I guess, does anyone have any additional questions so far on the webinar? Okay, so permanent sample plots program. So if you go to www.alberta.ca/permanent sample plots program, you can find information on the permanent sample plots program in Alberta.
Brandon, is it possible to have you make that screen full screen? We can just see your calendar on the other side there. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, permanent sample plots. So you can go to www.alberta.ca/permanent sample plots. So underneath here gives an overview. So there's approximately 1,200 PSP locations, each containing single or multiple plots. So PSP manuals, looks like the Alberta government forest permanent sample plots new manual is coming in September coming September 2020. Okay, so it's already out. Spatial data. So yeah, there's some information here. If you go back, I guess here, so just www.alberta.ca/forestry. This is pretty much where all the forestry stuff is on the Alberta government website. If you go under sustainable forest management, and you can find everything around sustainable forest management. So you have timber permits, forest tenure, forest harvest operations, compliance and enforcement, forest management plans, permanent sample plots program, regulated forestry professionals. So yeah, if you're newer to the industry and you're wanting to learn more, or if you're one of our international hires that's coming to work with us, which I know there's a couple on here, then here's a good spot for you to go to start understanding some of the legislation that we work within. I also pulled up under open.alberta.ca. There you can find the reforestation standards of Alberta. So that's a pretty important one that you could look at. This is May 1st, 2022. Underneath here, you'll find it's quite long. So here's all the contents here. So it goes over a lot. Establishment surveys, general reforestation survey standards, understory protection survey standard, performance survey standard. I know I touched on performance surveys a little bit today. There's more information in here. So yeah, this is definitely a good one to review if you're anyone that wants to work in silviculture, currently works in silviculture, or reforestation. See, we have Sam asks if he can claim CC credits for participating in the webinar. You can actually, Sam. So I spoke with AAFMP, and because I'm a certified tech and I'm presenting, you can claim this for CC hours, and we will be completing a 1 hour webinar once monthly all year is the plan. We may increase the frequency, but for now it'll be 1 per year or 1 per month all year. Stop sharing. So yeah, I guess we will be closing off the webinar. If there's any additional questions on tree measurements or anything else, feel free to ask now, or you can contact me right here, Brandon Soraka. Here's my phone number and email as well. We have Nicole Soraka. If you're interested in having us complete some work for you, Nicole's the best person to contact. I'd like to thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for all the questions today. Hopefully you got some value. Yes, you can use it as CC credits, and have yourself a good afternoon or good evening.